reality
Therapist
what's going
perception.
on.
Bachelorette.
Hello and welcome back to Reactivity TV. I'm Amy Albero and I'm a licensed therapist.
I'm Chris. I'm not a licensed therapist, but I'm here to take a victory lap about all of my hypotheses that have come to fruition in this week's episode.
You were the sorest winner of them all.
Listen, I just believe in recognizing when somebody is accurate and correct. And I think that's just as important as recognizing when someone's wrong. And if this show has taught me anything, is that we focus too much time on trying to recognize when we think somebody has done wrong and not enough time focusing on, when we think somebody's done right.
Okay, all right. So I'm definitely looking forward to unpacking that a little bit more, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. We are here today talking about The Bachelor, season 28, episode 5 of Joey's season. So we have a lot to talk about in the second episode for this week, and we apparently are going to get into it. But before we do, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel. We are slowly climbing those numbers closer to 1,000, but we would love by the end of the season if we could reach 1,000 subscribers. So anything you can do to help us get to that 1,000 subscribers is appreciated.
Yeah, just to remind you all, it's really important because at 1,000 subscribers, that's when YouTube allows us to start monetizing the channel, and any money we get from advertising is going to get plowed right back into improve the production quality.
Also, keep those likes and comments coming. I love engaging with you all in the comment section of YouTube. So yeah, we love hearing from you.
Also, don't forget to hit that bell icon so that you're alerted anytime we post new content to the channel.
All right, we ready?
I got so many things I want to open up
I know, I feel
with.
like you're like raring to go.
Okay, so probably the thing that I am happiest and saddest about is that this did not make it into last week's episode. It got left on the cutting room floor and edited out for time. But you are my witness, and there is video evidence that I went on to say last week that Maria is here to stay. Joey is tired of all the nonsense. He's tired of the Sydneys and the Leias, and he was going to do something bold to tell the women, cut the shit. Stop coming to me with Maria problems. She's going to stay and you're going to go if you keep causing problems. And, I had hypothesized maybe that means Leia goes home. You pointed out that there's no way that production would let him send Leia home. I said something is coming. And what did we see? Gives her the group date rose when she didn't really deserve the group date rose after Leia went and complained again. So I'm taking that for the victory. And now we both said that, and this I think did make it into last week's episode, that Kelsey A was due up for a one-on-one. We were expecting it imminently, and here we got it. So
I also did say I thought Medina was going home.
You did say that, but let's talk about Medina real quick before we get into the episode, because yes, she does go home. On opening night, I could have cared less about Medina.
We didn't really see anything from her.
We saw that one little interaction where she was a little bit sensitive, but I have to say, I found myself really disappointed to see her go home. I found myself rooting for her and really liking her to the point where I was like, you know what? If I were a 30-year-old single guy, I would take her on a date. And it all comes back down to the quality of character that she continually showed in this season. High character individual, very mature. And the way at the beginning of this episode that she was consoling Maria, we left off, if you all recall, that Maria was outside kind of crying, talking about potentially wanting to go home. And Medina's the one who goes out there and sort of consoles her and says, get your ass back in the house and finish what you started. And this is the person who supposedly was the big thing that started all of it with Sydney and now Leia, and with Jess to some degree. So, I mean, it just goes to show her level of maturity, her character, the quality, and it helps that she's quite attractive as well. So I was sad to see her go home, but I'm a Medina fan. I would like to see her. I'd like to see more of her. I don't know if Paradise fits her personality, but I'd like to see more of her.
I want to come back to Paradise for a second, but do just want to point out Medina is a mental health professional in the Florida area.
We could hire her. Medina, we got a Miami office. We're here today.
But yeah, would love to connect Medina. So just real quick about Paradise, there are two Bachelor Nation just like news items to just comment on real quick. I mean, we're not a Bachelor news syndicate. Is that the right
news
outlet?
Yeah, I think that's right.
But we did get an announcement that an announcement is coming about Golden Bachelorette coming this fall. So it is confirmed we will get a Golden Bachelorette season. But I did also see something today that indicated that either Paradise is not happening, period, or that Paradise is going to get postponed. So we might not get a Paradise this summer. If we do get one, it won't be until next summer.
Interesting. Did they say why?
It might have something to do with ratings. Maybe they just want to put Golden Bachelorette in that spot instead. I don't know. So
Interesting. Okay. So other things that I just want to point out before we get really into the thrust of the episode is that Joey habla español también me.
no, that's not correct.
Are you sure? I'm fairly certain
What do
that
you-
me and Joey's Spanish are equally as good.
What do you think you said?
I said Joey's Spanish is as good as mine.
No, that's not what you said.
Are you sure? Well, the moral of the story is that I don't think Joey knew what he was saying either. Between the fountain and the butcher shop, he was pretty banged up. Trying to speak that Espanol. He looked as comfortable talking to that old guy at the fountain as I do when we go to Mexico.
Boy. What I appreciate about you both is that you sincerely try to speak Spanish. But yeah, it was not good.
His or mine?
Both.
Oh, well, hey, listen, we're trying.
There's an effort.
You know what? So I get a kick out of that. And kind of the last thing I do want to talk about, maybe we'll get into a little bit more, but I'm just tired of Leia and the hypocrisy that she continually shows and the immaturity. I don't really understand why she felt compelled to take over for Sydney. And in some ways, she's actually worse than Sydney. So I'm sure we'll get into it, but
yeah,
it was quite noteworthy.
I think Leia will be a focal point of our conversation today. Yeah, I find her incredibly unlikable, as does the internet. We also learned, again, not necessarily trying to be a Bachelor news outlet here, but there's a great social media account called Bachelor Data, and that account shared that Leia is the first contestant to actually lose followers while still on the season. So that is meaningful, that like the audience is also not a fan of Leia. And I'm with them. I get it.
I mean, there's not really much to gravitate to. I did see that link you sent it to me, and I do want to point out that the top 4 acquirers, you happen to have 2 of the top 4. I wonder who has all 4. So I guess we should get into the episode, right?
I guess we should get into the episode.
This week, we opened up. We're still in Malta. We have ourselves 2 one-on-one dates and a group date. And we travel off to España. Is that correct? Okay. And we have 2 rose ceremonies. So they packed a lot into this episode. So what do you want to start?
Let's do chronological as per usual.
Okay. So we open up with the rose ceremony. And ultimately, we have 14 women at the start of the episode. Sydney had just gone home. And we are going to get down to 12. And Lexi, Maria, and Kelsey T all already have roses from their various different dates. And no real major surprise here. Edwina and Allison go home. Allison maybe is a little bit of a surprise because they did seem to have a good connection the first couple of episodes rather. But really had fallen off.
Yeah, Allison was in my pool, and if I had let myself, I would have swapped Lexi for Allison. But I wanted to give an honest pool. That was my first night reaction. But I think we only saw really the first night, that connection. And maybe there was something about having her sister there to give a little bit of the competitiveness around like forming a connection with Joey.
And gave production to contrast as well.
Sure. Yeah. But it almost felt like that is what pushed her to try to win time with Joey, was that her sister was there. And whether that, again, gave her the comfort or confidence or gave a little competitiveness, I don't know. But we didn't see them connect at all. If anything, she was kind of like Maria's emotional support friend throughout the last couple of episodes.
Yeah, she definitely fell off. Didn't see any of the aggressiveness, to your point. Don't really know what happened. She just sort of disappeared. And I don't think any of us were surprised to see her go.
Yeah.
Edwina, they had one, connection point, but, I thought that she was easily in the group that was most likely to be going home.
Sure.
I didn't have her in the top 10 when I was predicting things. So no
huge surprises across the board with any of the eliminations, actually. But
yep. And noteworthy, I know that you put a lot of stock in first and last roses, and first was Kelsey A. And last was Leia. And while I don't put as much stock into that, I do think that there's some evidence here to suggest like I've said for quite a while, Leia is here as a production pick. That's as far as she's going,
Right.
and this might be an indication of that.
Yeah, and I don't know, I've never been a lead on the show. I don't know a lead who's been on the show, so I don't really know how much say they have in first and last. But I want to believe, maybe the romantic in me wants to believe that if the lead did really really care about someone, they wouldn't make them sweat it out to the end. Like there's no way he would have waited on a Kelsey A. Rose or a Lexi Rose if she was still in the running. And so that tells me enough about how he feels about Leia, is that he doesn't care enough about hurting her feelings potentially or stressing her out, to not like move her up the chain. Yeah. So we have the first rose ceremony of our night. But after this rose ceremony, as you alluded to, they go on off to Spain, where he takes all the women out for sangria. And then while there, kind of drops the bomb that, like, I actually need to go because I'm going on a date with one of you. And hey, it's Kelsey A.
Yep. And I gotta say, the date itself, we could talk about that in a second. It was very, very reminiscent to the Lexi date. I actually liked the date in a lot of ways for the same reasons I talked about why I like the Lexi date. But more interesting is that you're starting to see the cracks form now. The women that were left behind really were having a hard time.
Yeah.
Rachel was having a hard time. Kelsey T was having a hard time. Jess, you're starting to see the cracks that would become a giant fissure later on in the episode. Leia, her kind of level of cattiness is getting higher and higher. And, even some of the people that, should be a little bit more secure do, get some face to camera time that demonstrate a little bit of insecurity here. And I thought that was more noteworthy in a lot of ways in the date itself, was that this is really the first time where I think in the season where we're seeing so many of the girls get emotional and start to break down is extreme. Cracks start to form in the foundation, I think is how I phrase it.
No, for sure. And we're at the halfway point, right? This is episode 5, out of 10-ish. And so it makes sense that like they have formed connections. And so it's going to hurt a little bit more when they are seeing their boyfriend go on dates with other women. But one thing I just also wanted to point out throughout this episode, but particularly after the rose ceremony and at the beginning of this first date and into the group date, we hear a lot of voiceover from Leia. And while the women are generally feeling a little threatened or sad or insecure that they didn't get called for the group, for the one-on-one date, what we hear Leia really focus on is the fact that Maria is still there. I don't know why Maria is still here. I can't believe Maria is still here. It sucks that Maria is still here.
Very reminiscent of what we saw Sydney.
Yes. And similarly, I pointed out in our last recording of week 4, or I'm sorry, episode 4, the juxtaposition between the way Sydney and Maria went into the one-on-one date, where Sydney was saying this is torture and Maria was saying, hey, I'm in Malta, get to see Malta. So we see the same thing happen again, same juxtaposition. Leia saying, like, completely fixating on the fact that Maria is there. And Maria saying, you know what? I'm just going to do me. I'm just going to focus on me and Joey, my connection. I've been doing that the whole time, and that's what's working. And she is correct. That is the correct thing to do.
So you know what this reminds me of? And I'm not going to use any names because I don't want to insult anybody, but you had a friend. Maybe you're still friends. I don't know. You haven't talked about her in a long time. But you were at different stages of life, even though you were roughly the same age. And to the outside observer, it always seemed like she was trying to compete with you. But in reality, you, by that point in time, were already married. You had your own business. You had your career. She was kind of like way behind, so to speak.
I have literally no idea who you're talking about.
Good. You might in a second. It always felt, and people would always comment to me, say, oh, so-and-so always feels like she's trying to compete with Amy, and Amy never even seems to realize that she's in a competition. And my response is like, yeah, because it's not really a competition. Like, Amy is 7 years further along in her career and her life, even though they're of similar ages. And like, that's what it feels like here, right? It feels like Maria is so far ahead in terms of her maturity and her outlook on life and what she's looking to do. And Leia,
her connection with Joey.
And her connection with Joey. Leia is in competition with Maria, but she's only in competition Maria because she's so far behind. That's who she's basically trailing in the race, and basically she's staring at her ass the whole way, being like, "I got to catch up to this girl."
Well, it's almost as though Maria's already lapped her, and
Yeah.
Leia thinks they're on the same lap.
That's a great analogy too. Yeah, it's one of those things that the Corrado Soprano. Some people are so far behind in the race that they actually think they're winning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a good reference.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. So anyway, I know obviously we're going to come back to Leia and Maria and that whole thing, but also wanted to point out that is also like in the context of what's going on in the morale of the house.
Yes. Yep. So let's shoot over to the Kelsey A date. Loved it. Another kind of walking around town, doing your thing, seeing some old people at the fountain, doing some wishing well stuff. End up at a dinner in an 13th century bathhouse, which I love the trip down a historical lane. Don't know if I'd want to eat dinner there. It's a little weird, but your take on the whole date thing.
No, I mean, like you said, it was very reminiscent to the Lexi date. We already shared our thoughts and feelings on a date like this, but like top line is it's a good date. It's a nice, it's a good date to connect, spend time together, quality time together. So I loved that. Kelsey A has an energy about her that's very effervescent. Like she is just light.
That's one of those words that people use, and I don't know that I know.
Bubbly?
Is that what that means?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Sorry, go ahead.
So she just has it seems like she's just such a good, not a good time, but like such an ease of time.
She seems chill.
Yeah.
She seems like she's just relaxed.
But not in a try hard chill way, but like actually.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Chill, easygoing, easy to be with kind of person.
Yeah.
We've been seeing Kelsey A emerge these last few episodes. So it was really nice to get to know her a little bit more. And then we really get to hear more of her story, more of her background at the dinner portion.
So this is what I'm going to say. That one of my other takeaways of this episode was, and I really want your take on in a holistic sense, at some point, but this felt like trauma dump central. It felt like Joey was on the same date 3 times, hearing the same story 3 times. Am I wrong?
Oh God, my heart, my empathy was with Joey this week.
It felt hard.
It was hard. It felt like every interaction was like, I need to tell you something very, very hard about my life. And that, I was really feeling for him this week. Yeah.
Well, one of the things that I had written down in my notes was that for me, Joey felt very robotic this week. He didn't come across as genuine. There were moments where he was kind of some of his old self that we see in other episodes. Like when he was talking about his shoes with the flamenco dancing and stuff like that. Exactly. And we saw aspects of that at various different points in time. But he just felt very robotic. And I just almost wonder how much of it was because he was just mentally exhausted. I mean, as a mental health professional, how heavy that can be. Because I only know because you tell me. But for somebody untrained, that would be like me walking in and untrained, hearing all of this in a short period of time, trying to hold all of that.
Well, you this is the second of our episodes in a row you've criticized Joey being robotic in these heavier conversations. I guess I don't see it. And so I guess I'm trying to imagine, what is your standard then? If I, as someone you're getting to know, shares about my mother dying of cancer and how I'm wondering what she thinks of this experience and is she proud of me? Show me, how do you respond to that?
Well, I'm not as empathetic as Joey is. I mean, Joey's a better human being than I am. I don't know how to express how I think he should act, but it's one of those things where I know it when I see it kind of thing. And and I don't know. I just,
what would you have liked to see more of? Was it a tone of voice? Was it a body language? What did you feel was missing?
Yeah. So the first thing is his affect goes quite flat for me. And the choices of words that he uses are exactly the same. Again, we can clip him and you just hear it's like the same kind of the same cadence, same word choice in the same order. His affect and his tone kind of go flat. And it just feels like I'm in now to pre-recorded mode is kind of how it feels like.
Okay. So I'm
not saying this is a bad thing. I understand. As a lead, I'm sure he is under tremendous pressure. Sure. And he's trying his best.
So listen,
there's a criticism with love.
Well, no. And I think it's so fascinating because again, as a therapist, I see what he's doing and it's quite brilliant, actually,
Okay.
because what you're registering as flatness, I disagree. I think so when someone is in a more heightened emotional state, in order to support them, it's not helpful to meet them up there. It's helpful to stay grounded. So to like actually get yourself more grounded and almost go lower, if they're higher, to help bring them back to a baseline.
Create an equilibrium.
Create a greater equilibrium. It's the best way to de-escalate someone. And not that any of these women needed de-escalation, but emotionally it was heightened. And so that's what I felt like he was doing, was dropping down in energy, in tone, in cadence, in body language, to help bring them down a little bit and calm down the emotions that were in the room. And that's very much of what we do as therapists, is a lot of times it's about matching energy, but when there's a more intense emotion in the room, we're trying to bring the like emotionality a little bit more toward groundedness.
I mean, that makes a lot of sense. Interesting. It leads me to one question though.
Mm-hmm.
How come then when you're mad at me and I don't match your energy and I go lower, you get more mad?
Well,
like,
because when I'm mad, I want you to say, yeah, fuck yeah, you have a right to be mad at that, or like that person sucks. Like sometimes I want you to like get on my team.
Well, forget about when you're mad. Who's when you're mad at me?
Oh, that's a whole different story.
Yeah. Because I don't feel like you here, me over here is helping me at all. Like I don't feel like that's. I can try to go lower if you want, but you know.
But you talked about essentially like you're accusing him of being like a tape record, like a recorded tape.
Accuse is a hard word.
Okay.
I am empathetic to what he is going through.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I can also recognize like that the way it's registering for me.
Okay. So yes, across all of these really difficult experiences that he's hearing, are there commonalities in the way that he's responding? Yes. Is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. One thing that he said across the board was something like, you're okay. It's okay. I'm here. Beautiful. Thank you. That's great. That's all you need. He didn't respond in kind. What did we accuse Gary of, right? He didn't respond in kind with a matching trauma story. He didn't minimize it. He was just with them in it, and patient, and just reassuring of like, you can keep going. I can hold this. You don't have to apologize. I'm here. You're okay. We're okay. Like, it's okay. Keep going. I can hold this with you and for you. And I thought that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We don't see that. We usually see he said one time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you for sharing that with me. And then insert those other things. Typically, the thanks for sharing that with me is all we get. All we get. And that's what leaves us so unsatisfied. Typically, The Bachelor, because there doesn't often like tend to be a lot of emotional intelligence in the lead of The Bachelor, especially recently. So it's been so annoying for these women to like share their story or even share I'm falling in love with you. And it's like, thanks for telling me that. Thank you for sharing that with me. I appreciate you sharing that with me. Nothing. So he just felt so much more with them. I just want to take a quick pause to tell you that Revive is hiring. In our Miami and Pittsburgh offices, we have full and part-time W-2 and 1099 clinician positions available, and this includes both postgraduate and associate level licenses, in addition to fully licensed clinicians. In our Connecticut offices, we have full-time, fully licensed W-2 clinician positions available, including clinical supervisor opportunities. If you are interested in working for a company that values community, work-life balance, and your personal and professional growth, then we want to meet you. Find a link to our website in our bio. Okay, so anyway, just wrapping up Kelsey A's date. Obviously, she gets the rose. He says he's very smitten. We see that. I get it.
Seems legit. This seems like one of the relationships that he is, you know, if I could sub somebody out, I would sub Jen for Kelsey A in the survivor pool.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then we go to the group date. There's 10 women on this group date.
Everybody but Rachel, who hasn't already had a date.
Mm-hmm. Right. And Kelsey A, obviously.
Yeah.
So during this date, they are instructed to pick I was like not quite
Okay,
following this.
so I had to watch it twice. I rewound it and went back. Rewind. Wow, that's a date me there. Yeah, I hit the back skip button once, right? The 30-second back button.
Mhm.
So yeah, the instructions were to write one sentence on what Joey means to you, and then follow it up with a picture, a painting rather, that kind of supports your sentence.
Mhm.
And this is one of those things where I I struggle with this a little bit because it plays into a certain set of skills that not a lot of people have.
Yeah, I agree.
And I would have bombed this one pretty
Mhm.
badly because I can't specify anything in one sentence, as you all know, and I can't draw to save my life. But I think when we see how Joey responded to a lot of these, I actually really give him a lot of credit because he was able to really look past some of the nonsense and really hone in on what was being attempted to be conveyed and how in the depth of what was being conveyed at a level that you wouldn't necessarily expect a 28-year-old to do. So I actually didn't end up hating this date as much as I thought at the forefront I was going to hate it. What about you?
I didn't love it. Same reasons. Like this definitely benefits some, participants more than others. I just, I don't know. I, I'm at a loss for words. I just like, who cares? Like, it just felt like, what is this really getting us? Yeah, I guess it gets you a way to communicate how you feel to Joey, but it felt a little like self-flagellating, honestly. So it wasn't my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is it's not a lot of one-on-one time. And somebody, I don't remember who said it, but somebody even pointed out, like, we don't actually know him well enough to be doing this challenge right now, which I thought was remarkably honest. And there was actually a lot of honesty in this episode. We had a moment with Jen later on. There was another moment going back to Kelsey A for a second, where, he was basically like, hey, how you feeling? And she's like, this is going pretty good. And that's not to backtrack on us, but when Kelsey A said, oh, I'm not falling for you, I'm starting to trip a little bit, but I'm not falling for you. I loved that because again, there's very few things less attractive to a man than being like too available, so to speak, right? Like, let me work for it a little bit here. And I thought that was a clever play. I'm interested, but like, I'm not swooning for you right now. Like, but I'm really interested. And that's the way to really grab a man's attention. If he's already interested in you. And so that was excellent. But we saw a lot of that, in this episode with several different people, but I forget who said that comment.
I think it was Kelsey T.
Might have been Kelsey T. Yeah. But I agree with that general sentiment where, you got a lot of just nonsense. Right. Some of these people have not had one-on-one dates with him at all. Right. Like you have no connection point to any of this. Yeah.
No, it's true. And, as is the case with all of the other group dates, the person who does the best job in this portion gets a little bit of extra time with Joey. So Jess is the one who gets extra time. This also is very telling to me because their extra time was not very intimate. I
mean, it could have been. And this is what tells me right off the bat that he is not interested in Jess, and Jess is a production pick. It was one of these stupid, like, we're going to paint each other sexy, make the sexy painting with our bodies type thing. And the first thing he does is goes and sticks paint on her face, and even she comments on it. And they just screw around for a little bit and do whatever. Like, but no part of it felt sexy. No part of it felt intimate. And if he was interested in her, that would have gone very differently. So I've said in the past, Jess, she's already out. She just doesn't know it yet. Yeah. And at this point, she's in because production knows that her and Leia are going to start some drama. And that's that she would have been gone probably last week otherwise.
No, I agree. I think I had said that. Okay, so then we get to the cocktail portion or the evening portion of the group date. And this is where more of the sad stories come to play.
Yeah.
Joey's wearing that therapist hat.
Yeah, well, this is where Maria does her trauma dump on him, where she talks about how when she was a baby, her the car that her and her mother were in was basically crushed, and somehow that led to her mother not really being in her life growing up and stuff like that. A lot of heavy stuff here.
I have to say, and maybe this shows my bias toward Maria, I didn't like when some women do like the heavy share, it's like, all right, already. Like, but for Maria, because they already do have a connection, and we've really only seen it be like mostly physical, like they swallow each other's faces when they make out. Like they are
They
really,
have great makeout.
they are really like physically attracted to one another.
Yeah.
And it's reminding me a lot actually of Leslie from Golden Bachelor, where there was like such a lead with like sexuality.
Yeah.
And
but
so,
in a very different way.
no,
Leslie and
sure,
Maria, like
sure.
Maria has more going on.
Yeah, well, maybe. But what I did like was that we got to see and meet a different part of Maria. We got to meet a more vulnerable part of Maria, and we got to learn a little bit more about her. It helps contextualize her a lot more. And so I thought it was meaningful and important that Maria shared this with Joey.
Yeah, I like that it gave some context to her character and why she is a bit the way she is, which I don't think there's anything wrong with the way she is. In fact, she's quickly growing to be one of my favorite in the house. So this after party for me, outside of the Maria thing, was really dull. You know, he pulls Jen first. Kelsey T gets emotional. He talks to a few other people, but we don't even get really any context or any real view of what they talked about. You know, the whole thing is really centered around Maria, and she ends up getting the group date rose. Here's what I find interesting is that he could have given the rose to Kelsey T because Kelsey T also did some emotional stuff. And it's the Kelsey T was more in line to the rose that he typically gives. Now,
the pity rose,
the kind of the pity rose. Exactly. Whereas he doesn't pity Maria, and he would never give Maria a pity rose because, you know, that's just not what she's conveying. Even when she's trauma dumping on him, she's trauma dumping from a position of strength, which is unbelievably sexy and attractive, by the way. Is that you don't feel like she's telling him this in order for him to feel bad. It's, I'm telling you this because if you're going to be in my life, you should know this.
You should know this, yeah.
And let's just get this out of the way so that we can get on to the more important stuff, which is the future. Whereas you don't get that from the other, really most of the other.
Very good insight.
No, thank you. You know, even a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. So, but he ends up giving it to Maria. And this is what I said at the top of the episode, where I was predicting that he was going to do something to indicate to the rest of the people, I'm tired of this bullshit. Maria is sticking around, so get along with her. And I do think that this rose was an indication of that subtly. As a guy, that's something I would have gone to production and said, I want Leia gone. I would have actually just eliminated her outright when she was complaining about Maria earlier. At the end, it was at the end of last episode. She was taking her time with him in the previous cocktail party to basically just complain about Maria. If I were the lead right then and there, I would have kicked Leia out. And then I would have walked into the cocktail party and basically let everyone know that I kicked Leia out because she couldn't get along with someone in the house. Well, Joey's not as aggressive as I am.
Sure. But I want to come back to that point about Leia's use of time when we get.
Oh, I got lots to say about Leia's use of time. Yeah, we're going to cover that. Anything you want to talk about in this after party? Because I thought it was pretty dull.
No, nothing else to talk about here. Why don't we move on to the second one-on-one date of the week in Spain?
So this was something that I got really excited for about 10 seconds and then felt like a deflated balloon. You know, they came in, the announcement was that him and Rachel are going dancing. I'm like, you're in Spain. This is going to be some awesome Latin dancing. I was kind of hoping that we were going to see some salsa dancing or something like that. And even Rachel was like, I wonder if it's salsa. And then it turns out to be flamenco dancing, which, got to be honest, never done any of that. Not really that interesting. But you know what? I still do really like this as a date because even though I've said it many times, dancing is a wonderful thing for couples to do because it is a form of nonverbal communication. It's, you know, you are conveying intentionality through your body and through your motion. And the way that you show somebody what you want them to do and what you expect of them through your body and how you connect to them is a really powerful thing. And that's what separates truly amazing professional dancers from just people who go out on the dance floor and wiggle. And that's like when you take dance lessons, that is, once you figure out the basic steps, that's what 90% of learning the dance is. It's not the steps, it's the connection. And that's why I
Yeah.
love couples dancing.
Well, and I think, yes, that's the role of the lead, right? And the role of the follow is to trust that the lead is going to guide you in whatever direction that you need to go, whether it's navigating the floor or figuring out the pattern or the next moves. It's to fully trust and let go of like essentially like
It's a trust fall.
backseat driving. Like it really is about putting trust that your partner will guide and lead you to where you need to be. And I think that's also really beautiful.
Yeah. And so anyway, we did not get that in this episode. We got some flamenco dancing, but I don't have the high tops, but I do have a pair of those heeled ballroom Latin shoes.
Latin dance shoes.
Latin dance shoes. They are here. Mine were not as high as his, and I don't wear them very much these days. But yeah, they're. I have also, Joey, I have also worn them. I wore them with cargo shorts. Do you remember that?
I don't want to remember that. I'm trying to block that out.
Cargo shorts and a Star Wars t-shirt.
And with like white athletic socks.
With white athletic socks. Oh my God.
I'm trying to have a picture somewhere to post.
High points in Chris fashion. Yeah. So Joey, I promise you are not alone to have been in that situation.
You weren't the first one to make that faux pas.
Yeah, exactly. So, so really the takeaway is they learn this flamenco dance and then they have to go, dance it in a group with a bunch of other people. It was cute, but I would imagine that there were probably better uses of time at this stage of the game than that, even though I do really like the activity as a general concept. So anything about the dancing or anything you want to talk about?
No, I thought it was kind of anticlimactic.
That's how I felt too. Yeah. You knew there was going to be a twist and there was going to be a presentation of some kind. And, flamenco is not, in my mind, the best of the dances. It's perfectly fine for a few flamenco advocates out there, but, we
have a bias.
We have a bias to salsa and bachata and whatnot. So they have their dinner. And I want to talk on this a little bit because she spent a lot of time talking about the fact that she's a nurse and what it means to be, but you're already smiling.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What it means to be in a relationship with somebody in the medical field. So I have a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm just going to throw out a couple of things and then pick you up and tell me where I'm being too critical. But my mother was a nurse, owned a nursing agency. I'm married to a therapist also who owns her own business. Being married to somebody in the medical field, especially when you're talking about like nurses and therapists, not that challenging, not from a timing perspective and things like that. I've never been in a relationship with a doctor, so that maybe that's different. But I feel like she was really concerned about something that's not really an issue. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think so. I can't speak to your mom's experience being a nurse and how being a nurse has impacted her marriage or her relationship. I know, she and her dad have a really nice relationship.
She yells at him a lot about not taking care of himself, which is well deserved.
Sure. Right. Yeah. Well, she's not his nurse.
That's fair. Yeah.
So what I will say that like I sort of appreciated Rachel calling out is, and maybe this is just maybe speaks more to where I'm at in my own experience of being a helping professional, is that it is really taxing. You do hear and see really difficult things and think about, like, even today when we were having lunch, how distracted I was by something that was going on that really needed my attention, or how much when I come home after a difficult day and you're wanting to like just chat with me as my husband, and I'm like, I can't, like, I need time, like I need quiet. I'm like tired of like that compassion fatigue is really kicking in. And so I think that is a really big part of being with someone who's in a field where like you are constantly caring for someone all day, is that might mean that you as the partner might get a little less care. And I think it's really important then that you have a partner that is secure, but is also communicative. Like, you are so good in that you'll say like, hey, I'm here. Essentially pay attention to me, not quite that needy, but like you're really good at bringing my attention and focus like back to myself, back to you, back to our relationship. And so I think like I have an advocate for our relationship in you. And so I think that like sometimes, well, in all partnerships, the load is not even in terms of like who might be tending to the relationship. And I think because for me, so much of my care goes to the,
Revive community.
Revive community of thousands. There's less for you.
Sure. Yeah.
So one thing that they did reference was the fact that their relationship is a bit of a slow burn.
Mhm.
And I found myself, I said in their daytime portion, it felt anticlimactic. I felt so unsatisfied with this date because I like Rachel.
Mhm.
I think she's great. I see like it feels like they're trying so hard to make something happen.
They being Joey and Rachel,
Yeah.
or they being production?
Joey and Rachel.
Gotcha. Okay.
Where I just like don't see it.
Mhm.
And I
Agreed.
think they're calling it a slow burn because they might just genuinely like one another and like spending time together, but it feels a bit like they're forcing it. Like it just like there's a part of me that's like, I want it to work too, but I just like walked away from their date just feeling like, huh, okay.
Compared to the Kelsey
I
A
just
date,
wanted
compared to,
more.
yeah, yep, I agree. I love that you brought this up, because I have some really strong feelings about the slow burn
Concept.
just concept as a whole. So if I am going out on a date with a woman and she tells me I'm on a slow burn, I take a long time to warm up to people, and a lot of the various different things she said and however you want to phrase them, I'm not going out with that woman anymore.
Well, I don't know in this case that it's individual. I think they're saying their relationship is a slow burn.
That's fair. But if you're telling me that you're walking in guarded and it's going to be a slow burn, then what you're telling me is I'm putting in a lot of work to overcome things that I may not be able to overcome, that also aren't my fault.
Well, okay.
And I think that that's a really important thing to recognize.
That's fair, but I think you are not understanding the term and the reference of a slow burn. I agree with you about that. If someone said essentially I'm slow to warm, basically, or it takes me a while to build a relationship. That this is not the setting for you if that's the case.
Yeah.
Like you are
What
not
doing here?
Well, it's just like you don't have the luxury of time. And so if that is true for you, no, like you're wasting your time, you're wasting Joey's time. He is here to get married. He is here, sorry, to get engaged. And you can't compete with the women that are kind of like ready to go in. And we see this every season. So that type of individual doesn't typically do well here.
Mhm.
We typically hear like this phrase, like, I don't know if we can get there. And that's how I feel with Rachel. Like, I don't know if they can get there. But to characterize a relationship as a slow burn is different because it's really talking about that their connection takes a long time to build, that it might take a while for them both. So I know we're getting lost in semantics here,
Sure.
but long story short, there's just not enough time. There's not enough time for Rachel and Joey. There's just not.
Yeah, and I'm not seeing it on the screen.
Okay, so Rachel gets the rose, and they cheers to their slow burn, and then that closes.
Honest cheers ever.
Yeah, that closes us out on the dates for the week. And then we're right back into another cocktail party.
Incorrect. We got the best part of the episode.
What was that?
Tennis match between Joey and Jesse. All right, you want to move to the cocktail party?
Let's do it.
Oh, bye.
Sounds like you don't want to move to the cocktail party.
I mean, okay. Let me open with a question. And I already know your answer, but for American 29% Canadians, if you have a rose, are you still going and trying to sit down with the lead?
1000% yes.
That's not how math works.
100%.
There you go. Yes. Correct answer. I don't understand what Jess's issue was. I don't understand what Leia's issue was. This was
it's all about time.
It's all about time. And it's all about advocating for yourself.
And your relationship with Joey.
Yeah. So long story short, there was a cocktail party, but nothing that happens actually matters because it was all centered around the fact that Caitlin is having a conversation. Maria comes up and very nicely and pleasantly, in Caitlin's own words, no, she came and she stole them, but she was very pleasant and sweet about it. There was no issue. And then, which is what they all do, they all go and steal them from one another, and Jess just starts to have words about this, talking about how it's unbelievably disrespectful, don't understand why. And and then Leia gets involved and the whole thing starts to break down. And this is another example where Maria got baited into it and handled it poorly, but she's fundamentally correct. There's nothing wrong with her actions. There was nothing. The initial part of it, acknowledging like, Jess, you seem to be having a hard time. Would you tell me why you're having a hard time? She was fine up to then. And then she started to handle it poorly. And again, a little bit of the age showing. But I want to talk about Leia kind of separately as part of this. But the whole Jess thing, give me your take on it.
No, I mean, listen, Jess is feeling like she's way behind. Maria's an easy target. That is the thing. She is confident.
It's punching up.
Exactly. Thank you. More succinctly said than I would. And so that's what a big part of this is. But what Maria does is completely mutually exclusive to what Jess does.
Mhm.
And because Maria is taking initiative and being assertive in her pursuit of Joey and their relationship, it doesn't have to mean that you can't do the same thing.
Mhm.
You had equal opportunity. In fact, you should have been more assertive because you did not get the rose. And so I just, yeah. So what do I think is going on there? It's, again, a lot of insecurity, punching up, as you said. And I think that they all have scapegoated Maria, and she becomes the very, very convenient receptacle for all of their anger about where they are in this competition.
Yep. I have so many thoughts about this, but now Jess asks basically rhetorically, what does Maria have that I don't have? Jess, I'm going to answer that question for you. Maria is more fun than you. She's more mature than you, and she's more interesting than you. That's just the reality. And Maria's really attractive. So your answer is that you need to take this as a learning experience and be more interesting, be more fun.
Well, I don't know how prescriptive that is, but I think
and be more mature.
I think there it is. I think what makes Maria more interesting, and more fun is that she's more secure with herself, and so she could just be herself. We actually get to know her. She doesn't give a shit about any of this other nonsense. I don't even know what the drama is anymore. What are we fighting about? I don't get it. And so like Maria's trying to not be wrapped up in that. And so we get to know her a little bit more. And for me, that's Maria's most attractive quality is she is herself. And she puts herself out there. She's unapologetically her. She's confident. That is sexy. That is attractive. That is a very attractive quality that Jess doesn't have. And at least as portrayed here, that many of the women don't have. The woe is me, the pity party, the victimization, none of that is attractive.
I 100% agree. This entire situation really demonstrates some differences between men and women. We've talked about in the past, the kind of holding back versus the aggressiveness and the assertiveness. This is not a show where you can sit back. You must be aggressive.
Assertive.
Aggressive, assertive. Sorry, I am using synonymously, but yeah, assertive. And you're dealing with a bunch of very attractive women who probably, we talked about in BIP and in the past, like the hot person problems, specifically say hot girl problems, where you've probably never had to be assertive because you've just hung out and guys have just thrown themselves at you, and you're at the first time in your ever life, having to actually be assertive, and you don't know how. You're insecure about this fact. And so instead of, trying to learn, act, do, instead you're just getting angry at somebody else. Jess, Maria didn't steal time. That's not what happened. Maria advocated for herself and took time for herself. You had every opportunity to do the same.
The same opportunity.
Same opportunity. Exactly. The reality is that nobody takes time from you. You either take it for yourself or it's gone. There's fundamentally no difference between if Maria doesn't steal them, somebody else would have. And the reality is, if you are not going to be assertive, you're not going to get what you want in this setting.
Yeah, it really is trying to balance. And I think this is something that as women, we struggle with is the difference between like what it means to be nice and what it means to be assertive. And I think your conflating assertiveness and aggressiveness was really important, because I think that's why we see a lot of passivity on the women's side, is because, I would be the one sitting on the couch being angry, because I would be people pleasing my way through this competition, because I wouldn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I wouldn't want to encroach on anyone's time. I want to be nice. I want to be the nice girl. And I think that is so inherent in a lot of the way that as women, we navigate these situations, and then we feel resentful about it because we didn't advocate for ourselves.
So we've talked a lot about Jess specifically and her response and reaction. But one thing that I did want to discuss was the reaction of the rest of the group, because the way production is displaying this is quite interesting. I actually feel like they're trying really hard to create this tension, but they actually don't have a lot of material to work with the rest of the group. Because what do we see happening? If Maria was really as toxic and terrible as Leia and Jess seem to indicate that she is, that should be supported by somebody else, right? So you have Sydney. So you had 32 people. So 10%, roughly, a little less than 10% of the House thinks that Maria is awful. That means 90% were unclear where they sit, right? Well, so what do we see happening? Caitlin says, no, Maria stole them, but like, no, she was really pleasant and nice about it. You had Lexi come to Maria's defense when Jess is, going on about how disrespectful it is. You saw Kelsey A, right? What are some of these characteristics? Kelsey A and Lexi are both relatively mature, and they are generally considered nice people that are unproblematic. You saw Jen make a statement being like, this all just seems pretty blown out of proportion. There's no real drama here. You saw Medina actually siding with Maria here. So I think we're seeing that the House is very much, on the whole, behind Maria here. And there's only a handful of youngins, the ones that are, you don't like the term youngins?
No, it's funny because I was thinking like the House is clearly divided between the young one
and immaturity.
Yeah.
Yep. And it does seem to fall along those lines. I don't know how old Kelsey A is, but we know that Lexi's around 30, Medina's 31, and Maria is 29 or 30, somewhere in that context. So all of those bunched up in the three all seem to see no real issues with Maria's behavior, and all those bunched up at the low twos all seem to be having some difficulties. Am that correct observation, or do you see something different?
No, I see the same thing. Like I said earlier, like I don't even know what the drama is anymore. I don't know why we're fighting. Like what is going on? And I also think it's very interesting that this happens a lot, like especially in conflict, but particularly when there's a low maturity level. The things that Leia, Jess, and Sydney have complained about as it relates to Maria and her toxicity, the way that they're going about it is exactly what they're accusing Maria of doing, which we have never seen Maria actually demonstrate. But they, in their quest to prove that Maria is all of these things, that they are the problem, they are the toxicity. And it's just, every time we watch the show, especially like centering around this drama, my line is always like, projection's a bitch. Like that is what we're seeing. Like we are seeing so much projection here.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So is there anything else you want to talk about with respect to the cocktail party before we move on to talking about Leia specifically?
No.
Okay. So the situation with Leia, as I see it, is as follows. She constantly is talking about how other people are stealing time from her. And yet, on the other hand, she's threw away her free steal of time. She's talked about how earlier in the episode,
she referred to that as cheating.
As cheating, yes, she referred to it as cheating. She talked about how it's disrespectful to take time from somebody else, or if you have a rose. And yet at the same time, she's constantly talking about how she needs more time. There seems to be a significant disconnect.
And she's spending her time with Joey.
And that's where I wanted to go.
Talking about other women, not building her connection.
So exactly, and that's exactly where I'm going to go. So what did she spend her entire time talking about in the end of episode 4, her time in that cocktail party, was all about how much she is struggling because Maria is still here. So the time she has is being wasted, and she's also being quite hypocritical. Did you catch what she said about Jess? Jess, her now apparently like best friend in the house. When Jess won the time, she shit all over her painting basically, and indicated that she's didn't even indicate, like flat out said like she's not winning this thing. And I'm a little jealous she got the time. And her painting sucked. And I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she said. And this is supposed to be her best friend. This is after she got done talking to Medina, was it last episode or 2 episodes ago, whatever it was, about how she's a high character person and she rides or dies with her friends. I mean, the hypocrisy and the lack of a mirror, right? And so this is something I'm a little upset that we didn't reference this in the last episode, because it is one of your most famous quotes, and that is "water your own damn grass." And looking back on last episode, I feel like that was the theme. Everyone needs to water your own damn grass, and it is extended into this episode. Give me your take on this whole thing.
I mean, truly, I don't know that I have more to add than that. I think
Well, you have to, because you're the brains of this operation.
I mean, you just are quoting me, so it works. I mean, I just get to sit here and listen, But no, I mean, I think that's inherently the problem. And I think the people that do well on this show, let's take it out of the show. Let's think about dating and relationships as they are in modern dating and modern relationships. And I'm thinking about, I relate this show a lot to dating apps. That's not a unique take of mine. It's just, it's a really good way to talk about themes that come up, especially when you're dating more than one person, or the person you're dating could be dating more than one person. And it is so easy and quick to jump to thinking about the relationships that may be going on, what those connections may be going on, that takes up so much real estate in your mind that it then focuses the attention away from your ability to build a connection. You even thinking, do I like this person?
That seems to be the one question that women don't ask themselves, in my experience.
Do I even like them?
It's a lot of, do they like
them to like me?
Yeah.
And we say, like, we can see some of this play out on like seasons like this, or just like franchises like this, when there are multiple people involved in a dating scenario, because now I am at a point where it's like, okay, Leia, I don't know if you even like Joey. You haven't spent any time really with Joey. The time that you are spending with Joey is not about you and your connection. It's about undermining the other women. Low character moment, by the way, moments. And so you are so consumed with what Joey might be thinking about the other women and how that impacts his view of you, that you haven't done what you need to do to let Joey get to know you and form his own opinion. And so I think it's like you're trying to be very maniacal about the whole thing, but you
missed the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
No, I completely agree. Yeah.
So Leia, I mean, I've said from night one, again, but how many times can we use immaturity? Immaturity is the new Schadenfreude for this season. For me, that's like what we keep hitting on.
It's just so interesting coming off of Golden into this. It's just
maybe it's just more amplified. I don't know, like because of that, like because of the juxtaposition.
Yeah.
But yeah, the immaturity is high. And again, it's good for drama. Like I am enjoying this season. As much as Leia's very unlikable. We needed her. We need her, or else what are we going to watch? What are we going to talk about? But I'm really, really exhausted. They must be exhausted. Like no wonder for Sydney, it felt like torture.
Yeah.
No wonder for Leia, she hates that Maria is there. Like they are consumed with the thoughts, assumptions, ideas, trying to imagine what's going on in their mind. Like that is exhausting. And so many of us are guilty of doing this in our own lives. We create stories in our minds and make assumptions about what other people are doing or thinking about us. None of that's any of our business. I said that before about who, Jess?
Something like that. Yeah.
Like it's none of your business what Joey sees in Maria. None of your business. Don't concern yourself with that. It is a distraction. And didn't realize how fired up I was going to get about that, but it's just such a common theme and common thread that comes up.
Yeah. All right. So what else happened in this cocktail party? He had a good conversation with Daisy. Jen did some stupid stethoscope thing. We're too late in the game for that, Jen. I just don't think they have a strong enough connection to continue on.
No, you
But
have
I
to
think
stop
they're
wasting
buddies.
time.
Yeah, and I just didn't get the stethoscope thing at all. His conversation with Kelsey T, I thought this was a real missed opportunity on her part. It just came across as really meaningless. They were like talking about her clothes or something, and it was just like it felt awkward. And this is somebody who's been having some emotional struggles this week, and now she finally gets some time, and it just felt like she was unprepared. And I was kind of caught off guard by the fact that she was unprepared. Like, you've been wanting this, you've been freaking out about not having this, and now you have it, and you don't seem to be knowing what to do with it. And I thought that was like a real missed opportunity on her part. All right, we've jumped all over the place. I really don't think there's anything else to talk about with the cocktail party. It all centered around this Maria, Jess. I honestly, Maria didn't even have to be there. Jess just needed to have her situation, and Leia just needed to get involved because that's what Leia does. So I hasten to even call it a Maria Jess situation. It was really just a Jess situation. And then we roll on to the cocktail party, and Jess doesn't get anything. Ceremony. Sorry, you're right. The rose ceremony. And Jess doesn't get time. And I do want to point this out. If Jess had, instead of picking a fight with Maria, if she had just picked herself up off the chair and walked over to Joey and said to whoever was there, hey, can I steal him for a minute? Because that's the thing you say, apparently. She would have had her time.
He's learning.
So,
especially when on night one, Jess told us, I'm not here to make friends. Well, guess what? Go ahead. That's your permission. Go do it.
Yeah, don't even get me started on that one. Yeah. So we roll on to the rose ceremony. No big surprise here, but I will say I was really disappointed. I think we all knew where this was going. But there was a part of me that was just kind of hoping upon hope, because Medina had really grown on me. And I just, but the problem was she was so unproblematic that production just didn't care. And she was actually, it felt like becoming kind of a decent support system. And Maria's probably two strongest supports were becoming, oddly enough, Medina and then Lexi. And Lexi's not going anywhere. So, if you're trying to create drama and crumble people's infrastructure, that seems like the brick you're going to knock out. And it's clear that she doesn't have a connection with Joey. But I would have liked to have seen her stay. And I hope we see more of her.
Well, that was one thing I commented on to you before we started recording, was like, oh shit, like Maria's whole support system is gone. Allison gone at the top of the episode.
Yep, she was another
Medina
one.
Gone at the bottom. So, I mean, it does, as you pointed out, Maria's got a lot of support in the house.
She's got allies, whether or not they're friends or not. I think Lexi appears to be friendly to her. But allies might even be a strong statement. She has people that are not looking to take Jess's side. They're non-adversarial, and they're going to be, perfectly fine and pleasant with her. Maria's not.
So that makes me worry for Maria, is that she doesn't have like a go-to person.
Yeah. But we'll see. I think Lexi could fill that role, and Lexi's going, deep.
Going the distance.
Yeah, she's going to hometowns anyway. So, all right. So rose ceremony. I know we're kind of jumping ahead, but Kelsey A, Rachel, and Maria all have roses, so they're in. We're dropping 2, going down to 10. So who do we still have in it? Jen, no surprise. I think she's top 7. Kelsey T, I think she's top 6. Daisy is winning this thing. Leia, she's there because of production. Lexi is going to hometowns. Caitlin, who is going to be out next week. And Jess is another production pick. So that means the other person that we lost was Autumn. No shock here. Seemed nice enough. A lot of people liked her. She was an early favorite, but there's just...
wasn't enough. Didn't do enough.
All right.
Rose and Thorn.
Who asked about my rose this week?
Love it. My thorn this week.
I hated to see that. I have gone first on Rose and Thorn the last 2 weeks, and so I feel non-chivalrous for that matter. So why don't you lead us off?
Okay, I'll start with my rose. Okay. Something that I have alluded to. My rose, you got to give Joey your rose last week. I'm going to give him my rose this week for something that I referenced earlier, and that is he's working really hard. And I think he's doing a really good job in terms of holding space for these women. He's not a therapist. And I just think that his empathy is so strong, and the way that he demonstrates care, I think is beautiful, and it's not easy to do. And so I was having so much empathy for him in just hearing this stuff, and still like being so present, being so engaged. He must be really tired too. So I appreciate seeing that from him. So he gets my rose.
Yeah, nice. So my rose, I gotta say, one of my favorite aspects of any episode we've ever watched of this show together, double rose ceremony. Production, I would like a double rose ceremony every week. If you could fit a triple rose ceremony and just squeeze it right in there, right at the mid-roll break, I am happy with that. Let's cut them down. Let's especially early on. So I was a big fan of that. Yeah. Your thorn.
So to call this my thorn might be a little too aggressive, but I just like can't stop thinking about my lack of satisfaction with the Rachel date.
Yeah.
From the missed opportunity with dancing, and like I know that it was like a cultural exploration to do flamenco dancing, so I think that was like very cool. I just think again, kind of
they're not connecting.
They're not connecting, and it could have been a really good opportunity to connect. And I just felt so unsatisfied with I just like left wanting so much more and feeling like it was so like anticlimactic. There was no catharsis there. Like it just felt so, it had the same energy of the limo entrances on night one, where it just felt like kind of low energy. I was like, come on.
That's
like,
right. I forgot
more.
about how bad those limo entrances were.
But yeah, I was just like, oh, like, okay, fine. And so I just like at this point in the show, like I want romance. I want it blooming. And I just felt like they both agreed to like be like, meh, okay, another week.
Yeah, I with you 100%. Yep.
What about you? What's your thorn?
Okay, my thorn. I understand why production would. Elephant in the room. We haven't even acknowledged the fact. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. Why would you give us a double episode this week? This was a really busy week, and we had a fake holiday in there on top of that. Like, I didn't have the time to watch 2 episodes and edit and film all of these.
Hold on one second. You can't call it a fake holiday. You're full of shit.
It's a corporate holiday.
You did
it has no meaningfulness.
You did something very sweet for me on Valentine's Day, and it's okay to own that.
Listen, like a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while. I thought of something every once in a while. I think of something cute and it executes well. Doesn't happen that often. I'm really happy it worked out and it was meaningful, but it doesn't change the fact that it's a fake concocted holiday, and nonetheless. But that you're missing the point. The point is that it was a busy week. I did not need 2 episodes this week. You know, if you're gonna do 2 episodes, you know, like I need, you know, something different. Like I hate the women tell all. So like if you're gonna give me 2 episodes, give me a real episode and give me the women tell all. Don't give me 2 real episodes. Like this almost in many ways, we complain about the 3-hour episode. This was basically a 4-hour episode. And I you know, it's just a lot of content to have to do if you're busy.
I agree. It was a lot. It was
when you also have to navigate on a holiday week on top of it. So, you know, production spaces out better. All right. I think it's that time of the night.
Okay. Well, thanks for watching this episode. Again, if you're not already a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button and also that like button at the bottom of this video. Also, just FYI, we do have another podcast, not us, but at Revive, we have another podcast called Wishing You Well. And me and my fellow therapist co-host, Catherine, talk about wellness. And this week we have a great episode up on our YouTube channel, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, with a registered nurse who specializes in hormones and hormone health. We talk all things PCOS, how to balance hormones, and so much more. So check that out. You can also follow us on Instagram at Reactivity TV. We have a lot of fun content coming up there. You can check out our website, revivecfw.com, and we will be back next week for episode 6 of The Bachelor. So we will see you then. Bye.
See ya.